What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another chance encounter. Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house that's going to be torn down soon. I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building. I'm joined today with Kenton. How you doing today, Kenton?
I'm doing very well. Had a nice Thanksgiving and enjoying life on this relaxed day.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm particularly excited today because I've got my very favorite audience member here watching today. And why is my favorite audience member watching today? It's because this is a chance encounter where I interview commercial real estate syndicators, buyers, sellers, all those types of people. And why do I interview them? Well, part of it is because it's the law. A lot of deals that are going on are private, and so you're not allowed to even share those deals unless you have a prior substantive relationship or substantive or whatever that means. But really, what that means is we got to get to know each other. We got to know what each person is actually going to be doing in these deals. But before we get too excited about that, Kenton, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit for the audience?
Yes, I'm a debt broker,
Mm-hmm.
and I use direct lenders all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
And the what we like to do is incorporate all the things that we have in our background. When I say we, I have 7 advisors that I use as well,
Mm-hmm.
besides myself. And so we know everything from the engineering and building the building, to buying the building, managing the building, of course, the financing the building is what our forte is. But there's the I think one of the things that people forget, that especially a multifamily or anything with, you're going to have renters,
Mm-hmm.
it's a business,
Mm-hmm.
not just, you buy it and work it and it makes you money
Mm-hmm.
in your
Mm-hmm.
sleep.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. There's a lot
So
to it, and that's actually why the first segment that I go through is the 5 different distinct motivations I found among commercial real estate investors. But before I get to that, I don't know if you can see through the camera and into the audience's device, but under there, I'm not sure if you can see if they have the red subscribe button or if they have the gray one, which is the good one. Nah, it's just a joke. Anyway, the 5 different motivations for doing these acquisitions. The first one that some people are up to is preservation of purchasing power. And what that means is if you already have a nest egg, a portfolio of properties, and you use the cash flow that comes from them to make ends meet, then the only reason why you're going to go through the hassle of another acquisition is to stave off inflation or because there was some sort of asset crash, and that's what you're protecting against. Now, that's not what I'm up to, though. What I'm up to is I'm trading time directly for wealth, aka deployed capital. See, I've got a background in technology, and that means that, oh, yip-de-doo, I'm a high earner. But there's a problem with being a high earner. When it's salary or wages, you're paying more in tax than anybody else. So it hit me as like, well, how do I pivot into being in a position where I'm getting this deployed equity, so I'm skipping a step and building my investment portfolio that way. But a lot of people who are new to this industry, what they're really up to is trying to take control over their schedule. So maybe it's just even leaving the door open for retirement, or maybe it is actual fast tracking. But that's what some people want to do, is they want to work fewer hours per week or fewer months per year or something like that. And
exactly. So I want to address that,
yep.
because as a, you know, all of my profits, well, my net profits are
Mm-hmm.
going to go into investing, and I definitely want to do it in to build wealth,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
not just to, get cash flow. Uh,
Right.
Wealth is the long term, so I can relax.
Exactly, exactly. So there's two more motivations though, and
Right.
the question's going to be which ones really resonate with you the most. This next one, it's just plain old ambition, and it might be for the generational wealth. The people who want to make sure that their great grandchildren never have to hold a day job. These guys are great because they're going to be hustling into their 90s. But the last group, they're also going to be hustling into their 90s, but basically their heart is in a little bit of a different place. They've found a sector of society, or maybe it's the environment or animals, or they want to send people to space. Who knows what it is? But if you want to make a really big impact, you have to have the financial side all buttoned up as well. So, Kenton, of those five different motivations, what jumps out to you? What combination of those describes you best?
Well, I guess I jumped on your lines there. So yes, well, the wealth. It's there's a first of all, you want to have the wealth. His life is a lot, the problems in life are a lot less if you have enough money to cover them. But the last one that you're talking about is how can we make a difference? As our Apple founder would say, he says, make his dent in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, the dent in the universe um, is to find those great ideas, and then uh, my concept is to say, okay, I'm not going to be able to go out and do the research and carry on everything else I'm doing. So I'm going to go find a CEO quality person who wants a new business
Mm-hmm.
and say, okay, here's 50,000, whatever it takes to go build me a business plan that can get financed. It's going to work. It's got a team behind it. And when you bring it to me and you pitch me just like an investor,
Mm-hmm.
if I like it, I'll invest in it. If not, it's mine, and I might find somebody else that I want to pitch it to. Okay. Or we'll go together and pitch it. But the idea is to get to the point where we like it. We bought it, so it's ours. And we
Mm-hmm.
want you to go out and start pitching it and then run the company.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
see? So
Yeah, that's
that
awesome.
means that I'm spawning whole new thing, like planting a tree,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
except it's a really fast growing tree like bamboo.
Right, right. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And
Good
then
stuff.
there's a little secret. The bamboo grows up and creates a canopy. Okay. And underneath the bamboo's canopy, guess what you're growing?
Pandas.
Long term hardwood, uh, you know, or trees,
Right.
which grow up slowly, but they have to be in that canopy. So you're creating double, you're creating things that are going to contribute to other things,
Right.
and make money in the process and also do good in the world, and not just figure out another way to, sell sugar to teenagers or something like that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, my next question, though, it has to do like this is more aimed for the newbies, people who are new to this, because I'm always concerned that I'm trying to take somebody seriously, but they just heard that there's money in this industry or something like that, and they haven't really let it sink in that there are risks involved. So I've got a fill in the blanks question for you, and you can
Okay.
choose anything real estate or otherwise. There are many popular investment asset classes, but I think blank is too risky. What's too risky for you, Kenton?
uh, Retail as it is today is
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the riskiest things to get involved with. I mean, if you go down to the riskiest one that's ever been, and that's restaurants, but
Mm-hmm.
regular restaurants, not a franchise like a McDonald's or whatever. Those are pretty straightforward if you've got the 250 to $500,000 to buy one. But the restaurants are bad, but people think that retail is as straightforward. Man, you're going to see some serious fallout of in the retail worlds,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason is because the people that are in or have the retail, either one single business or they have a place that they're renting to retail, is that they're not thinking about what are we going to do when we go down to 50% occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do?
Right.
You know, well, there's a lot of things you can do, and I won't go into it here, but you have to be thinking about that and preparing for it well ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't do that. most people don't do and say, okay, what if I lose half my renters in my multifamily? What am I going to do? Well, you probably go to mixed use and start putting grow farms in some places and putting retail on the first floors,
Hmm.
etc. That the retail that's going to be used by the renters,
Hmm.
amenity
Right.
retailers,
Right.
like like yoga studios and daycare.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Those
Yeah.
are going to be
Beautiful.
there, but
Yeah.
they have to be there where people can get to them.
Hmm.
So it's possible, but it's still the riskiest because people haven't prepared themselves for the recuperation. I mean,
Hmm.
recuperation. We hope recuperation. The problems that we've had for the last couple of years in
Right.
COVID.
Right, right, exactly. I love it. I love it. And so the next segment, though, it brings in the Dan Does Deals Commercial Competency Cube. You can get yours at dandoesdeals.com, and it's got the 6 major roles in a commercial deal. And in every single episode, I go through all 6 of them, and it's not for my guest's sake; it's for yours, so that way you understand how my guest fits into deals, so that you can get your head around all of this. So I'll go
Exactly.
through each of them, and I'll fill in some blanks here for Kenton. I'll get his comments as well. So first, let's talk about what a repositioner is. A repositioner is an acquisitions person. They're looking at a lot of different properties, but what separates the repositioner from someone who is just knocking on doors is they're doing something fancy with the paperwork. They call it underwriting. That means they're doing the arithmetic. They're figuring out how much money is this property actually making, and you need to do that because if you just trust what the broker and the seller says, you might have a really bad time. But the
Well,
repositioner
that's
has to
one of
know
the
that. Hmm.
fortes that a lender should bring to the table.
Definitely.
Somebody who's doing the financing, whether they're a broker or the lender, or private equity or whatever, they should be bringing that to the table and be able to read those guys, do those guys, and make sure that they're actually accurate and going to be investable.
Exactly, exactly. So that's why some people, I've noticed some people that are real cowboys and they succeed very well as repositioners, even though it's just like it seems like the math just isn't there for them, but they're just used to just making things work, and the only reason they get by is because their lenders do the deep dives into the numbers and figure out
Yeah.
what makes works.
Well,
But
they've also been had the tailwinds, and
mhm,
there's no tailwinds now.
right, right.
Tailwinds are gone. You're going to come around the corner and hit that blast, and it's going to knock you over unless you're prepared.
Exactly, exactly. So the financiers are a very important part of the puzzle there. Those are the people who deal only with the money and with the paper, and that's how mostly where I consider you to be there, Kenton. But
But it's not only. We
not
do the
only, not
rest.
exclusively, not exclusively.
Yeah, yeah.
So the repositioner, the reason why they're doing the math is because they need to figure out where there's some upside. And they will first turn to the lenders. If they get more advantageous lending, then that's going to automatically make a more profitable business. But all things the same, the next place that the repositioner is going to look is the operations. They're going to make sure that those Benjamins don't go down those toilets. But of course, there's much more to operations than just unclogging toilets or collecting rents
Absolutely.
and mowing lawns and all that kind of stuff. Like there's a marketing component. Kenton was mentioning about if occupancy just goes down the tubes. Well, that's also a marketing piece, and that's they call them leasing agents. But the idea is having that marketing piece in place is one part of
And
operations
and
for its
it's and you're a
success.
tech guy, and you know how little the tech is being used in commercial real estate these days,
Oh yeah.
and everything from entry systems to fire systems, HVAC systems to management systems and occupancy systems, you name it.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not being used well at all, and we need to upgrade a lot of our buildings. And those people who get used to that, they're only going to want to buy those kind of buildings.
Right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. And so it's a real competitive advantage. So that's why the repositioner always needs to have a network of them.
Absolutely.
But the next step that they're going to look for is the contractors. They're going to do a value add. In other words, they're going to do renovations. And they're going to do that because that means that the next tenant would be happy to pay more in rent than the previous one. But of course, you have to be really careful about that. You can blow through money so quickly with construction. So if you have the same problem that I do, which is I'm from the internet, so that means it's very important to have locals. You have the boots on the ground who can be there in an hour or so, and that's not going to be me because I'd still be stuck at the airport. But when you've got this entire GP team and the repositioner turns around to the financiers and says, hey, I got this property, it's worth tens of millions of dollars, and you don't happen to have, say, tens of millions of dollars you want to lend me, do you? Well,
Not yet.
one thing, right? Exactly. And the one thing that the financier is going to need to know, though, if it's just you and your buddies, is who's your sponsor or KP. And what that's all about is if you want to be eligible for a commercial loan, somebody in the fold has to already own a similar asset. So if you can buy the property outright, then, giddy up. But if you want a bank's money, then you're going to have somebody who's proven that they own and can run a property without it going into the ground. But if you got all those pieces and you have the proper amount of liquidity and a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan, you've got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So, Kenton, I said before I consider you to be a financier. Do you want to expand a little bit on that?
Well, the yeah, I mean, it depends on whether you want to buy a $1 million property or $100 million property. Our sweet spot happens to be probably in 1 to 10 million. And it's because we're a bit new to this game. I've been on the other side of the table, helping prepare everybody from real estate investors to tech providers to be prepared to go see the financier. And so now I've worked my way over to the other side of the table, and so I kind of know what's going through their mind. I do know what's going through their mind over and over again, and it's usually they realize that they're probably not fully prepared. So my job is to gently figure out where they're not fully prepared, and then to help them correct that as soon as possible. If they're willing to correct it, great, we'll continue to talk. If they're not willing to correct it, they can either hire us or go hire somebody else. Right. And because there's no sense in going any forward. Go talk to a direct lender when you're not prepared. It's crazy. And too many people think that if I just get in front of the right guy, I can convince them because I'm a super salesman and they're going to write a check for me that day.
Yeah, unless you know
that does not happen. I'm sorry. That's only in the movies,
Yeah, that's really it. Yeah, you completely
an
dream.
Accidental situation with
Right. So, and that's the thing they say is, if you get the deal, then the money will follow. But it's called like you need to know what a good deal is, and just so that you know, when commercial syndicators, investors, and whatnot are asking about what's your ideal property or a buy box, they're really talking about three things. The first one's geography, so which states, which counties, which neighborhoods. It can all matter. The second one's going to be the size. Kenton already mentioned, from a dollar perspective, where the sweet spot is, but generally when you're talking size, you're talking about unit count. And the reason for that is because like a 15 unit property, taking those down, it couldn't be more different from taking down a 500 unit apartment complex or portfolio. So there's going to be completely different teams. So that size is very important. Now, the third thing, though, is going to
more size you have, the more people you have to deal with, not only the tenant, but the helpers.
Right, exactly. There's just more everything. And but the third thing it has to do is called class. And unfortunately, they use the same word for two different things. The first meaning of the word class, it has to do with, is it old and beat up, or is it at least like basically up to date, or is it luxurious with all sorts of amenities and all that kind of stuff? So that's one meaning of class. The other meaning of class has to do with the neighborhood where the property is located. So that has to do with school districts, and it has to do with crime rates and things like that. Now, both of those different versions of class, they rate it with the same system as grade school. So it's like A plus, A minus, B plus, and so on like that. So, Kenton, you mentioned the price before, and maybe you're more of the bet on the jockey rather than the horse type, as they say. But as far as deals that you're most interested in funding, what kind of details can you give?
Well, the restricting oneself to either class is restricting. What you want to do is you want to know the class and you want to know what your challenges are going to be, whether how much tailwind you have, etc., and then uh, address that. I mean, if you're going to go for a Class C in amenities and a Class C in the neighborhood, then you're going to wind up with a different challenge, and you need to have the people to be able to challenge that on your team. So yes, the jockey needs to understand the turf.
Mm.
Is it muddy out there? Is it is it almost like concrete? You know, how are the horses properly prepared
Mm-hmm.
to run on any of those?
Mm-hmm.
That you're not going to run. You're probably not going to run horses on a dog track.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so don't try, and don't run dogs amongst a bunch of horses. See, so it's all about knowing what you're up against and adapting properly to it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love that answer. So my next question then, it has to do with who you're disproportionately well suited to help. And because everybody has their own skill sets, me with my background in CRMs and the marketing from that, I'm always on the lookout for the sponsors and KPs, getting relationships with them because they've already got the foundations where I can really make an enormous difference. Now, Kenton, I'm imagining it's the repositioners you definitely want to be meeting. Also the operators and the locals, they all sound like really good fits for you, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Like, who are you looking for more than anybody else?
All six sides, my friend,
Okay, cool. Exactly.
because
Connect
you
this
have to
guy.
have a piece of each one and a strong piece of each one. And then I also suggest you've got your GPs. They're the ones that are fiduciary responsible for the deal going forward. Okay. You got your LPs who are passive all the way. They can give you suggestions. They might help on some knick-knack kind of stuff, but they're not the people that you're going to go to necessarily and say, we're coming up against a problem. We have a problem. What are we going to do? And I've got to be gone for 2 months.
Hmm.
Could you fill in? They're not going to ask an LP to do that. Matter of fact, it may or may not be even legal.
Right.
It's the other way is not legal. You
Right.
can't have a GP go passive on you.
Mhm.
But well, I don't think that's illegal, but it's not smart. So what I do is I suggest surrounding ones with some slightly paid average, excuse me, advisors,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
CXO quality advisors, people who could step in for you and that you could call up. And so you're going to give them a little piece of, say, a profit pool
Mhm.
in order to be able to attract them.
Mhm.
Okay. A piece of the company, that's complicated.
Yeah,
What you
it
want to
is.
do is just give them a piece of the profit pool. You're paying them out of a pool. And then you say, I want to be able to call you up to 2 hours a month and ask you questions. Or I want you to, spend 2 hours a month getting back to me.
Mhm.
Or we'll establish a billing rate.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now that's power. You've just doubled your GPs in brain power
Right.
by
Right.
putting each one of those guys, a complementary version of each one of those guys around you.
Mhm.
And then that makes a huge difference as far as I'm concerned. If somebody comes to me and say, well, we got these 5 GPs and we got these 7 advisors who are going to cover them in the event of anything going on, and they can ask them questions for a couple hours a month at no charge,
Mhm. Mhm.
which isn't going to affect my NOI,
Mhm.
except for that little part that we're going to pay.
Right.
Cool. They're
Mhm.
a powerful entity to be dealt with,
Mhm.
which means when anything comes up, they could pivot, they can solve problems, and they can go forward with gusto.
That's the spirit. That's the spirit. So speaking of going on with gusto, the next question has to do with how to reach you. We ended up meeting each other through some Zoom meetups. LinkedIn is a great way to reach me, or if you scan this QR code, that's for the FAQs page of 506B Me, and that is the way where I can be your chief compliance officer fractional for as little as $497 a year. So that's the deal on that. But Kenton, what's the best way? What are the best ways to reach out to you?
Okay. Now, I made this mistake before, but on Zoom, we have my name down on the bottom. Do we see this on this interview?
Yeah, usually, but of course, Zoom has a mind of its own. But
Yeah, okay. Well, if you can remember the term financeoptions.biz, and that should be right below my chin.
mhm,
And financeoptions.biz, that'll tell you all of the programs that we know, and we know some more too, and also how to get a hold of us, and a little pitch about us as well.
excellent, excellent.
Financeoptions.biz, or you can remember my phone number, just call 302 Kenton J.
There you go. Good stuff. All right,
Even though
awesome.
I'm in Denver, it is 302. I didn't
Uh-huh.
make a mistake.
Excellent, excellent. And so then the only thing I have left then, it's actually not for you, Kenton, it's for you in the audience, which is is kind of a public service announcement. If you've been noticing while you're watching this interview, you have searing pains in your eyeballs, like migraine, like, head, like lots, it might be because there's a big ugly red button under my left hand that says subscribe on it. And the only cure is to click on it, and that turns it gray, and all of those things will go away. And of course, I'm biased. I want you to click on it because then YouTube might actually start paying for these videos instead of me.
Yeah.
And honestly, it doesn't cost you anything. All it means is that my videos might show up on your list of suggestions, but you can go ahead and ignore those. I just appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me. Just like Kenton, I appreciate you spending the time with me. It's great getting to know you
My
a little bit better.
pleasure. I had a great time.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks. Make sure you 506B me. Any syndicators, make sure you 506B me.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Yeah, here's my code. You got your QR code scanner? Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just hold it right in the square there. Okay, cool. And now you hit open in browser.
Okay.
Okay. Are you already logged into 506B me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so there's my video. So now I'm already on your watch list. So when you get back to your hotel, you can find out what my core competencies are and my level of sophistication. Sound good?
Yeah.
I love your hat. Real estate's a scam. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
506B me, everybody.